Introduction. HTML is the basic computer language in which most websites are written. HTML is used to create web pages and make them functional. HTML was first created by Tim Berners-Lee, Robert Kellogg, and others starting in 1989. It stands for Hypertext Markup Language. The first ever version of HTML was HTML 1.0, but the first standard version was HTML 2.0, which was published in 1999. Hypertext means that the document contains links that allow the reader to jump to other places in the document or to another document altogether. The latest version is known as HTML5. A markup language is a way that computers speak to each other to control how text is processed and presented. To do this, HTML uses two things: tags and attributes. Webpage. A webpage is a simple document displayable by a browser. Such documents are written in the HTML language. A web page can embed a variety of different types of resources, such as style information, controlling a page's look and feel; scripts, which add interactivity to the page; media, images, sounds, and videos. Website. A website is a collection of linked web pages that share a unique domain name. Each web page of a given website provides explicit links, most of the time in the form of a clickable portion of text that allow the user to move from one page of the website to another. The difference between a website and a web page is that a website is a collection of web pages with information on a subject, and a web page is a smaller part of a larger website, usually containing more specific information. If a website were a book, then a web page would be a chapter in that book. A home page or a start page is the initial or main web page of a website or the browser. The home page is used to facilitate navigation to the other pages. Structure of a website. Generally, all websites have a basic structure depicted in the following figure: home page, main topic pages, subtopic pages, posts. Features of HTML: easy to use and learn, easy to implement, platform independent. Images, video, and audio can be added to a web page. Hypertext can be added to text. Consists of a series of elements that tells the browser how to display the content. HTML elements are represented by tags. HTML tags label pieces of content such as heading, paragraph, table, and so on. Browsers do not display the HTML tags, but use them to render the content of the page. Uses of HTML. To create a website, helps in developing the fundamentals about web programming, describes the structure of a web page. Advantages of HTML. It boosts one's professional career. It is supported by all browsers. It can be integrated with other languages like CSS, JavaScript, etc. Disadvantages of HTML. HTML can create only static web pages. So for dynamic web pages, other languages have to be used. Large amount of code has to be written to create a simple web page. Security feature is not good. HTML editor. An HTML editor is an application that helps you create HTML pages. Though you can create HTML documents using a simple text editor, an HTML editor is helpful, especially if you plan to write a lot of code. HTML editors usually highlight your code so that it's easier to read, and they will typically have an autocomplete feature that picks up on what you are typing and makes valid HTML suggestions. There are two types of HTML editors. Text editors. An HTML file is a text file. We can use any text editor to create an HTML file. Text editors are programs which allow editing in a written text. Some of the popular HTML text editors are given below: Notepad, Notepad++, Sublime Text 3, Atom. WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. WYSIWYG HTML editors provide an editing interface which resembles how the page will be displayed in a web browser. Because using a WYSIWYG editor may not require any HTML knowledge, WYSIWYG HTML editors are often easier for an inexperienced computer user to get started with. The WYSIWYG view is achieved by embedding a layout engine. This may be custom written or based on one used in a web browser. The goal is that at all times during editing, the result should represent what will be seen later in a typical web browser. WYSIWYM, what you see is what you mean, is an alternative paradigm to WYSIWYG editors. Instead of focusing on the format or presentation of the document, it preserves the intended meaning of each element. For example, page headers, sections, paragraphs, etc. are labeled as such in the editing program and displayed appropriately in the browser. Some of the popular HTML text editors are Google Web Designer and Adobe Dreamweaver. Elements and tags. HTML elements and tags work together to mark up content. HTML elements indicate the purpose of a tag, and tags indicate the beginning and the end of an element. For example, here is a simple paragraph in HTML. P, this is a paragraph, /P. The letter P represents the paragraph element. In this example, P is an opening tag that tells the browser that the content that follows it is a paragraph. The slash in the second tag, /P, indicates that it is a closing tag that tells the browser that the paragraph element is ending and that any content that appears after it is not part of the paragraph. You may encounter serious display issues if you don't remember to close each tag, because the browser will interpret that the element identified by the opening tag should continue for the rest of the page. HTML page structure. A basic HTML page is a document that typically has the file extension .html. All HTML documents follow the same basic structure so that the browser that renders the file knows what to do. It contains some elements like head, title, body, etc. These elements are used to build the blocks of web pages. The basic structure of HTML page is given below. Doc type, ! Doc type HTML. The first line of code, ! Doc type HTML, is called a doc type declaration and tells the browser which version of HTML the page is written in. In this case, we are using the doc type that corresponds to HTML5, the most up-to-date version of the HTML language. There are a number of different doc type declarations that correspond to various versions of HTML. HTML root element. The HTML element wraps around all of the other code and content in the document. This element, known as the HTML root element, always contains one head element and one body element. Head element. The HTML head element is a container that can include a number of HTML elements that are not visible parts of the page rendered by the browser. These elements are either metadata that describe information about the page or are helping pull in external resources like CSS style sheets or JavaScript files. The title element is the only element that is required to be contained within the head tags. The content within this element is displayed as the page title in the tab of the browser and is also what search engines use to identify the title of a page. All of the HTML elements that can be used inside the head element are base, link, meta, no script, script, style, title, required. Body element. There can only be one body element in an HTML document because this element is the container that holds the content of the document. All of the content that you see rendered in the browser is contained within this element. In the example above, the content of the page is a headline and a simple paragraph. Nesting. Part of the web page structure is called nesting. Notice above how the tag title is nested inside the head tag, while head and body are nested inside HTML. Each new set of tags is nested inside other tags, just like smaller boxes inside larger boxes. Container and empty tags. There are two kinds of tags, container and empty. The container tag always wraps around text or graphics and comes in a set with an opening and a closing tag. HTML opening tag, HTML closing tag. On the other hand, the empty tag stands alone. The tag BR is one that adds a line break. Empty tags do not have to be wrapped around text and do not require a closing tag. Creating our first web page. Let's now create a web page by following these steps. Open your text editor, Notepad. Enter the following code in Notepad. Click on File and select Save As to save the document. In the Save As dialog box, give the location where you have to save the file and give the file name as hello.html and click on Save button. To preview your HTML document, go to the folder where your file is saved and open the hello.html file. Your browser should open up and your page will appear as shown below.